Hi everybody, this is Professor Aquino, and this video is going over instructions and advice on how to put together your research paper outline for your final essay, essay number 4 for English 1A. So in addition to going through some instructions with you, I'm also going to go over one of the sample research paper outlines that I posted in the week 12 module, and that will also be copied into the week 13 module. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started, and I'll walk you through the assignment. So this is a 100-point assignment, and the first 25 points is based on creating a 3-sentence thesis statement. 3 sentences because you are answering 3 questions for your research paper assignment. So you want 1 sentence answering each of those questions. Question number 1 essentially is, what are 2 or 3 reasons why the character should be diagnosed with a disorder, the fictional character that you've chosen to write about, and the disorder that you've been researching, right? So what are 2 or 3 reasons why the character should be diagnosed with a disorder? I know a lot of you have been doing research on disorders where there are more than 2 or 3 symptoms in order to diagnose in order to diagnose somebody with a disorder, or 2 or 3 symptoms that are associated with a disorder that you've been researching. But given that we're answering 3 questions in this research paper assignment, I want to limit you to 2 or 3 of the symptoms that really stand out the most to you, especially that you have a lot of good evidence for, that you see very strongly in the character's behavior or the character's life. So that's a thesis statement sentence number 1. Thesis statement sentence number 2 should answer the question, what are 2 or 3 ways that the disorder negatively affects the character's life? And you can think of it in the character's life in 3 general categories. Their home life, so family, mother, father, brother, sister, significant other, children, just those types of relationships that happen at home, and also maybe the character's personal life, like what does the character want? What are the character's goals, right? Those kinds of things. Then, of course, the social life, friends, romantic relationships, things like that. And finally, professional life, whether the character is, employed and working a job or working in a career, or if they're going to school, that would still be considered part of their professional life. Okay, so what are 2 or 3 ways that the disorder negatively affects any of those areas of the character's life? You don't have to talk about all 3 of those areas, but just any of those areas. And then the final thesis statement sentence needs to answer the question, what are 1 or 2 treatments you recommend to help improve the character's quality of life? From the research that you've done on treatment that can be done to help people with the disorder, what are 1 or 2 treatments that you would recommend? And the treatments don't have to necessarily cure the disorder. In fact, a lot of the disorders that that you're researching, that the class has been researching, there is no cure. But if there are any treatments, such as medication or therapy of some kind, that can help make the character's life a little bit better in terms of dealing with the disorder and the disorder's negative effects, those are the treatments that you want to really focus on for this research paper assignment, for that 3rd question. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the sample. This is sample number 2 in the week 12, and week 13 modules. So this one is looking at the character Frank Castle from the Netflix series The Punisher. He's a Marvel Comics character, and is looking at the disorder of PTSD. So here's their first sentence right here, their first thesis statement sentence, excuse me. Throughout this series, Frank Castle has shown that he should be diagnosed with PTSD as he displays signs of re-experiencing unwarranted violence and hyperarousal. So based on that first thesis statement sentence, I know as a reader that this writer is going to be looking at 3 symptoms that Frank Castle shows. So 3 body paragraphs about those 3 symptoms. For the second sentence, in turn, PTSD has negatively affected Frank Castle's life, as it has changed his overall values in life, and terrorizes his sleep with horrifying nightmares. That tells me that the writer is going to be looking at 2 negative effects. How it affects his values in life and how it affects his sleep. So that means 2 affect body paragraphs. So that gives us 5 paragraphs so far, right? 5 body paragraphs so far. And then the third sentence, in order to combat these negative effects, Castle should undergo treatment such as adopting a service dog and receiving EMDR treatment. So that tells me 2 treatments are being recommended. So probably 2 body paragraphs. That brings us to a total of 7 body paragraphs is what it looks like this writer is planning to write for their research paper. Notice with these 3 thesis statement sentences, there's not any real explanation being given of these ideas. It's really just introducing them to us as readers, because they're going, the writer is going to explain each of these ideas in a lot more depth in the body paragraphs that follow this thesis statement. So if you give me these three sentence thesis statement that lays out the main ideas of your essay, answering each of the 3 research paper questions, that should earn you 25 points out of the 100 points total for this outline assignment. For each body paragraph in your research paper outline, there are going to be 3 things that I want to see. And altogether, your outlines for your body paragraphs will be worth 75 points for the outline assignment. So for each body paragraph, there are 3 things I want to see. I want to see the main idea or the topic of each body paragraph. I want to see 1 piece of academic evidence, either a direct quotation or your summary of evidence from one of your academic sources that you found doing research on the disorder that you chose. And then also 1 piece of non-academic evidence about the character that you're writing your research paper about. 1 piece of non-academic evidence that shows the character that relates to the main idea of the paragraph, excuse me. Okay. Giving me those 3 pieces of information for each of your body paragraphs will help me to see whether or not you're moving in the right direction as you start to put together your paragraphs for your research paper assignment for essay number 4. And that way I can give you feedback on, yes, this is good evidence. No, maybe you need to pick something a little bit clearer, or a little bit more, with a little bit more details and specificity to help relate more to the topic of the paragraph. It'll help me to really give good feedback on whether or not you have everything you need for each of your body paragraphs that you plan to write. I'm going to recommend a total of anywhere between 6 to 9 body paragraphs for the research paper assignment. So 2 or 3 body paragraphs for each of the 3 research paper questions. That would mean 2 or 3 diagnosis paragraphs, 2 or 3 effect paragraphs, and 2 or 3 treatment paragraphs. So let's kind of go through what I'm looking for each of those types of paragraphs for this essay assignment. First of all, the entire essay, the research paper assignment, is an argumentative essay. You're going to be making your three main ideas that you state in your thesis are 3 arguments that you're making. So everything that you're learning about how to put together a grounds body paragraph with the essay number 3 assignment on V for Vendetta, all of that applies to essay number 4. And also, you will not need to write any rebuttal body paragraphs for essay number 4. So we're only writing grounds body paragraphs, if just to make that clear. Okay. So my suggestion when you are writing an argumentative essay or an argumentative research paper in this case is to only choose the best academic evidence and the best non-academic evidence that you've gathered for each paragraph that you plan to write. You need to resist the urge to present most or all of the evidence that you've gathered. You may have written research papers in the past in other classes, and if you were asked or required to present all the information or a lot of the information that you found, that meant that you were writing, rather than an argumentative research paper, that meant actually that you were writing an informative research paper. And we're not writing an informative research paper for 1A. Again, we're writing an argument. And I always think that the best approach to making an argument is presenting only the best evidence that you have, the strongest evidence that you have. By that, I generally mean the best evidence is the evidence that helps you to prove the point that you want to make, whatever that point may be. Okay, so your first 2 or 3 body paragraphs for your research paper will be diagnosis body paragraphs. Again, answering the question, why should the character be diagnosed with a disorder? So in terms of choosing evidence for each diagnosis body paragraph, you want to think about, how does your evidence prove that the character should be diagnosed with a disorder? You want to offer the best proof that you have that the character should be diagnosed with a disorder. So in terms of academic evidence, you want to present academic evidence that clearly links the symptom to the disorder, to the disorder. Not just that there is a symptom, but how does the symptom connect to the disorder itself. Sorry about that. Having trouble speaking right now. And I would definitely recommend academic evidence that explains how the symptom relates to the disorder as clearly and most straightforwardly as possible. Try to avoid, as much as you can, giving evidence, especially direct quotations, that are very heavy in medical language, because that can be very hard to understand for readers or anyone who's reading your essay. So you want evidence that's relatively straightforward, relatively to the point, written in a way or expressed in a way that anyone can easily understand. That would be my suggestion, just for academic evidence in general. And then for the character evidence in your diagnosis body paragraphs, you're going to want to choose evidence that really shows the symptom in action, really shows the character displaying the symptom in terms of their behavior, in terms of their actions and reactions to things, right? So you want to look for those scenes, those moments, those interactions in the character's life, whether you're looking at a character in a TV show or a character in a movie or a character in a video game, or a character in a novel. Where are those moments? Where are those really strong moments where you see the character really displaying the symptom very clearly, right? And then just something to keep in mind as you are outlining your diagnosis body paragraphs, and I've highlighted it in yellow, and you can see it on the screen here in front of you, is when it comes time to put the paragraph together, to write the paragraph, part of the explanation you'll need to give is how the symptom or how your evidence, again, proves that the character should be diagnosed with a disorder. And I think the thing to keep in mind there is that just because somebody shows a symptom doesn't automatically prove that they should be diagnosed with a disorder. If I think, for example, of say depression disorder, and sometimes people with depression, sometimes a symptom of depression may be insomnia, and you have evidence academic evidence that shows that from the research that you've done, and you have evidence that shows the character experiencing insomnia. Just because the character is having trouble sleeping doesn't automatically mean that they're depressed. There has to be more going on there that really links the character's sleeplessness, their inability to sleep, to more clearly to depression disorder, because there's so many different reasons why somebody may have trouble sleeping. It may just be normal stress. It may be there may be outside factors that are affecting their sleep, like noisy neighbors, or something about the environment around them. They may be a coffee drinker, and so they're just hopped up on caffeine. And none of those automatically point to depression disorder. So what is it about the character's lack of sleep that really relates and connects strongly to depression, right? Is what you would have to make sure you spend a lot of time writing about in that diagnosis body paragraph, where you're trying to prove that the character's insomnia means that they should be diagnosed with depression. Okay. So you're going to do that for 2 or 3 body paragraphs that you where you're going to be making your diagnosis. After the diagnosis body paragraphs, next you need to map out 2 or 3 affect body paragraphs. 2 or 3 body paragraphs that focus on how the disorder negatively affects the character's life. And here the argument you're making is a lot more straightforward. Is how does the disorder negatively affect the character's life? What is the negative effect, right? So you're going to want to choose for each of your affect body paragraphs academic evidence that strongly links the disorder to the negative effect that you want to discuss, that shows a clear connection between the disorder and the negative effect, right? Especially in terms of cause and effect, right? So the disorder causes this to occur, right? And you also want to choose character evidence that shows the negative effect in action. Again, a scene, a moment, an interaction that the character has that really illustrates that they're experiencing the negative effect that you're focusing on for that paragraph, for that body paragraph. Okay. Again, hopefully that's very straightforward. After your 2 or 3 affect body paragraphs, the last 2 or 3 body paragraphs for your research paper will be your treatment body paragraphs. Even if you are only recommending one treatment, I would recommend splitting that one treatment that you're recommending into 2 treatment body paragraphs. Maybe dividing it, for example, by 2 major steps that need to be taken in order for the treatment to be put into action. And again, in general, with the disorders that we've chosen to research, there's generally 2 types of treatment that are available. There's some kind of medication that helps with some of the negative effects of the disorder, and there's some form of therapy that's possible to help somebody with the disorder, right? And both of those general treatments involve at least 2 or 3 steps, right? It's not as simple as I take a pill and I feel better, right? I'll disclose for myself, as I have, I think, in past videos, that I have anxiety disorder, and that I've been taking anti-anxiety medication for the last 7 or 8 years now. And for me, when I have really bad anxiety, it's not as simple as I take the pill and I feel better. There are effects that I need to deal with. For example, it really makes me very, very tired. So that means that I have to stay home. I can't go to work. I have to call in sick. So I have to deal with that particular issue just so that my anxiety goes down. But also, with the anti-anxiety medication that I've been prescribed, there are possible negative side effects that I need to be aware of that are bad negative effects. Like I may start to experience suicidal thoughts, and if I start to experience that, then I need to take the extra step of going to my psychiatrist and saying, I'm starting to really have these really dangerous thoughts. Maybe we need to adjust my medication or change my medication because I don't want to have these thoughts, right? So medication would involve 2 or 3 steps, right? I take the medication. I have to deal with any side effects that occur. And I also have to check in with my psychiatrist if the medication isn't working the way it needs to, or if the medication is putting me in any risk of danger, right? Same thing with therapy. Therapy is not as simple as I go to a therapist and I talk to the therapist and I feel better, and everything is fixed, right? There's usually 2 or 3 steps that are involved, that that make the therapy valuable in terms of improving a person's quality of life. So, in terms of academic evidence for each treatment body paragraph that you plan to write for your research paper, I would definitely recommend choosing academic evidence that explains the steps that are involved in the treatment, that really walks readers through, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, however many steps there are. Here are the steps that need to be taken in order for this treatment to be put into action. And then also an additional piece of academic evidence that explains how the treatment will impact the negative effect, how it will improve the character's quality of life. What will the treatment actually do? How will it make things better, right? So you may get that all in one big, or from one source. You may get that from multiple sources. You may get that in one quotation. You may get that in 2 quotations. But I would definitely recommend getting academic evidence that covers both those topics for your treatment body paragraphs. And then another area where the treatment body paragraphs might get a little tricky for a lot of you, basically boils down to, when choosing character evidence, do you have any actual evidence that shows the character doing the recommended treatment that you're suggesting? And some of you are going to be very, very lucky, and you're going to actually have that evidence. There'll be scenes, there'll be moments where the character will be shown doing the treatment, taking the medication, going to therapy, right? An example from a previous semester, I had a student writing a research paper about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they chose a character from the TV show Grey's Anatomy, and that character actually went to therapy to help him with his PTSD. So there were scenes from episodes of that TV show that showed the character in therapy doing the treatment that was recommended by the writer, by the student who was writing their research paper. So they could use those scenes in their treatment body paragraphs. A lot of you are not going to be that lucky, and so you're not going to have the evidence that shows the character doing the treatment. They haven't gone to therapy in any of the scenes that you have, or any of the episodes that you've seen, or any of the films that you've watched, or any of the books that you've read, right? Or they haven't taken any medication because they haven't been diagnosed yet, or there is no medication in their world, so to speak, because they may not live in the same world that we live in because they are fictional characters, right? So if you are in that situation, what I would recommend is reusing the same evidence that you used in your effect body paragraphs. Use it again in your treatment body paragraphs, and then when it comes time to write your treatment body paragraphs, what you'll do with that character evidence is you'll explain, here's what happened to the character, here's how the character was negatively affected. If they were to do this treatment, let's walk you through now, you the reader, what would be different, what would be better about that scene, right? So if it's a scene where a character abuses their significant other, you can then say, here's one way that the character's life is negatively affected by the disorder that they have. If they were to take medication, in this scene, maybe they would be less abusive or not abusive at all to their significant other. And here's why. Here's what the treatment would change about their behavior. or about their attitude, right, towards their spouse or their significant other, or if the character is having trouble sleeping, right, as a result of their disorder, the disorder that they have. You have a scene of them dealing with insomnia, and so if they were to take, say, a pill that's given to people with a disorder, how would that improve their quality of sleep? What would be different in that scene where they were having trouble sleeping? How would that scene be different? How would that scene play out better for them? And to that, I will say that both of the samples that I've both of the samples that I've posted in the week 12 and week 13 modules not only include a complete research paper outline, but also the complete research paper, because they are from students from 1 year ago in my fall 2021 classes, who were working on this exact same research project. They both earned the full 100 points on their outlines, and they both earned A's on their research papers. Also, I was going to say that they both, in their treatment body paragraphs, they both were offering treatment or recommending treatment that the fictional character they were writing about did not have available to them, or weren't treatment that they were not doing. So you see, if you go through the sample outlines and then the sample research papers, that they both reuse their effect body paragraph evidence in their treatment body paragraphs, and talked in their treatment about how those negative effects, those scenes of negative effects, would have played out differently, would have played out better if the character were doing the treatment. In fact, let's look at a quick sample. Let's look at the second sample again to finish off this video. So again, in general, what I'm looking for each body paragraph. So this would be the student's first diagnosis body paragraph, diagnosis paragraph number 1. It could be a full sentence, or it could just be a word or phrase telling me what the topic of the paragraph is. But I want to know what the topic is. Then you need to present one piece of academic evidence that relates to the topic. In this case, this student presented a quotation, and also gave a little bit of explanation. I don't need the explanation at this point. I just need the evidence. So if you want to quote, if you want to summarize it in your own words, also I need you to indicate the source as best as you can. It doesn't need to be an MLA in-text citation like this. You can just give me the author or the title of the source. It doesn't even need to be in parentheses. It just needs to be indicated. This is the source that you're using, and this is the source where you got the academic evidence from. Okay. And then the third thing, you can see there's even more evidence down here. Academic evidence. And then I also need, for each body paragraph, one piece of character evidence, one piece of non-academic evidence. And you'll see here that this is a summary from something from the Netflix show, The Punisher. So that's indicated right there, right? Let's go down to one of the treatment body paragraphs so I can show you a little bit more what I mean here. So one of the treatments that this student recommended for Frank Castle's PTSD was to get a service dog. And so they present their academic evidence right around here. Here's how having a service dog helps. Oops. Here's how having a service dog, this section right here. Right, there's a couple of quotations from academic sources explaining, here's how this treatment works, here's how the treatment would help somebody with PTSD. And then later on in the paragraph, there's the character evidence right there from an episode called The Judas Goat. This is evidence that the writer used in one of their effect body paragraphs. So they're just reusing the same evidence. And then in the sentences that follow, right here, this is the student writer explaining, here's how the scene would be different if Frank Castle had a service dog with him, and had a service dog that could sleep next to him while he's having flashbacks, which are a common symptom of PTSD. So you can look at that a little more closely on your own. Again, both samples are in the week 12 and week 13 module. But that's what you need to know about the research paper outline assignment. I'm going to post what you see up on the screen right now. I'm going to post that in addition to this video. It'll be on the same page as this video, so you can review the notes as well. Please feel free to email me any questions you have about the research paper outline assignment, and also send me drafts too. As of right now, as I record this video, it is Sunday, November 13th, 2022, and your research paper outline assignment is due in 7 days on November 20th, next Sunday. So anytime before then, send me what you're working on if you're not sure whether or not you're moving in the right direction, or just want to double check, make sure that you're doing okay with the assignment. Feel free to send it to me, and I'll get you feedback within 24 hours on what you're doing well and what you might need to change. And that will cover it for this video. So hope you do well on the assignment, and reach out if you have any questions. Okay, take care.